So welcome, everybody. My name is Jerry, and I'm the founder and president of Myositis Support and Understanding. And today we are welcoming RDMD to talk about their IBM program. I'm going to let Lynn, who is she's the vice president of MSU now, and she has worked a lot together with the team at RDMD. So I'm going to let her go ahead and introduce them to you, and we'll get started.
Hello, everybody. See a lot of people there that I don't know, actually, but a lot that I do. So I wanted to introduce the founder of RDMD and a couple of his associates, and they're going to talk about the program and give you a little bit of background on the story. It's Ono Faber is the founder and president, and then his compatriots there are Charlene Fernandez, who's patient operations lead, and Julia Sakeli, who is clinical information associate, I believe. So I think that's the team. Ono, take it away.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for setting this up. I'm really excited to see so many people join. I think this might be one of our biggest webinars that we've done so far. So you guys are really well organized. That's amazing. Yeah, it's not the entire RDMD team that joined. So we have a variety of people, both in science and engineering and operations. I will just get started with sharing like some of the story, like how we got started, the background, and why we are doing what we do, and then dive in more to IBM. And in the end, like we have the time, so it's really nice to have a pretty extensive Q&A session. That's usually where we talk about the most interesting stuff. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
Yes, great. So just to start a little bit of my story, I am originally from the Netherlands, which is a small country in Europe, 17 million people. And I've always, as a kid, liked to solve problems and build things. So an example of that is a nail clipper I invented and patented, which sort of prevented nails from jumping around. So my mother told me I couldn't cut my nails in the kitchen when I was 10 years old, and decided instead of going outside on the balcony to think about solving the problem. So this to show you a bit of how my brain works. In high school, I started an internet company when I was 16. And sort of taught myself how to code and build applications and build software for the internet. I came to the United States with another company I started in Europe, which we were in video messaging. So we were creating new ways for people to interact through the phone. So it was another technology company. But when I was moving here, that was about 4 years ago, I started losing my hearing on the left ear. And after 6 months, and probably you guys all have an experience of diagnosing a problem, but for 6 months, nobody knew why I had hearing loss until they made an MRI scan, and they found that I had a tumor in my brain sitting on the hearing nerve that was destroying my hearing nerve and causing the hearing loss itself. And it turns out like half a year after that, I got another MRI scan, and it turns out I had another tumor on my second hearing nerve and one tumor in my spine. And they diagnosed me with a rare disease. Mine is called NF2, and it's a genetic disease, and the gene is known. I don't think for IBM it can be a bit more complex, but it's also like a rare disease. So not many people knew about the disease. It took quite a long time for the doctors to diagnose me with it. Now, the problem I'm experiencing is a loss of function. So I can lose my hearing, I can lose my eyesight and my mobility because the tumors appear in my central nervous system, like in the spinal cord and in the brain. And so it's quite a big shock for me to hear that, and I'm sure you can all relate to this in your own way. But it caused me to sort of think like about what I could do, because I was part of like the Silicon Valley community. I have been in tech. I've been starting things and solving problems and getting smart people together to work on them. So I thought I really want an organization to pave the way for drug development for rare diseases, because also in my case, there is currently no approved therapy on the market. And I felt like that it wasn't a problem. The problems that I was encountering doing my own research weren't exclusive to my rare disease. It was like shared among like almost every rare disease that I encountered, and every rare disease community I talked to had similar issues. So I thought we need an organization that builds something, some infrastructure to help solve these problems across diseases. Very short, like what I'm going to talk about, like what happened after my diagnosis, the challenges we face in rare disease, the need for a platform that we are building, the IBM program, and how you are like the critical part of getting that running. We'll talk about that more, and then we can do a Q&A. So right after I got diagnosed with a tumor, I had a tumor surgery coming up. So they took a tumor out on the left side. So they drilled a hole in my skull and removed the tumor. And I was working here with friends, and I got the tumor sequence. So I can talk for hours about DNA sequencing. I'm not going to do that right now. But basically getting sort of the core makeup of the tumor and what are the changes in the tumor in the DNA that could cause these particular tumors to grow. I used that data to organize an event. It's called like a hackathon. Like basically we had 300 engineers, scientists coming together and work on my data to find what could cause the tumor, and if there would be any therapy that could help me in the short term, a therapy that would be, for example, on the market for something else. So that was the goal of that event. And because I had my data in my hands, I literally had a hard drive with all the information, I could give it to all these people to work on it. And they did it, you know, for free. Nobody was paid. They took 3 days off and all came together. It was a very inspiring event. There is a video online. If you're interested, you can share that later. So out of all this research, I got like information that a certain drug could help me like reduce the speed of the tumor growth. And I started taking that drug half a year ago. And like it stabilized my tumors for the time being. So it's a short-term solution, but it really felt like it's one of the reasons I started RDMD, because I thought, we as patients can really sort of do something that results in sort of tangible outcomes. And like having a pill in your hand is like one of the most tangible outcomes I could ever imagine. So a little bit about rare disease, like what are the challenges there? So to back up a bit, rare disease is actually a really big problem. Estimated 1 in 20 people have one. So while we as communities feel like all these communities individually are quite small, and you know, it feels like you're like it's hard to find other people with the same disease. A lot of people have a rare disease. And in the US, it is even 1 in 10 people that have one. So 30 million people have a rare disease. And half of them are children. So in total, there are about 7,000 rare diseases. And to show you the size of the problem, only 5% of them have an approved therapy on the market. So the majority of the rare diseases don't currently have a therapy, and even of those 5%, the therapies are usually not great. Like they are not curative. A lot of them, like if you're very lucky, they are. So we're working on a really big problem. It's really important that we try to fix the sort of systemic issues in rare. On the upside, like there are lots of new technologies, right, that are being developed. We have gene therapies, immunotherapies, re-engineer our own body to go after a problem in the case of tumors. We have all the computer technology that helps us to look at like thousands of potential drugs at the same time at a low cost. So there is definitely hope. But in order to develop these therapies, we need a lot of resources. So one of them is an organized and approachable community. And this is also where organizations like Myositis Support come in, right? Like to organize the community, make things like this webinar possible. And it's really important that the communities organize themselves well. Also researchers and doctors. We need to understand the course of the disease. So that this is really important. If you develop a therapy, you want to know what is the normal course of the disease, and then you can compare your clinical trial results with what normally happens and sort of show that it is effective. So understanding the normal course is not only useful in our clinical decisions on a day-to-day basis, but it's also very important for developing therapies. And then lastly, we need, of course, the science. We need to have compounds, and we need to have ideas on how to solve the disease as well. So the problem in developing therapies is it's very costly. So in the beginning, costs are really high in the science, but if you develop the therapy later, the cost is even higher. And it's all very sort of sequential. So what we try to do is to do some of the things that you need to do in the development of these therapies, like right from the start. So bring some of those paths in earlier, and then you de-risk the development path because you already built resources in the beginning. So this is what we are trying to do with you, and I'll explain in more detail later how we do that. So why is it important that we have this platform? We're a medical data science company that patient communities brings them into the therapy process. So instead of being bystanders, and you guys are doing that too, but we do it through data. So we try to bring the community itself closer to the development path, and that is a really hard problem for the industry to solve. Part of what we do is how do we do it with the community? So what are we doing exactly? So we have research studies for every disease. One thing, as I mentioned, is natural history study, like what is the natural course of the disease in your condition. We help with clinical trial design. So if you know better, more precisely what's happening to the patients, you can design your experiments better. We can also help on recruitment. So if we see this patient is ideal for this trial, so we can help fill the trials, which is strangely, it's quite difficult to find the right match of patients for the trials, and that could benefit patients too. Trials offer patients sometimes an opportunity to try a new therapy. And then we build a product for patients themselves. So we basically help patients to organize their medical record. We do a lot of the work, but also help them improve the quality of it, which helps in your daily decisions on what you want to do next. But of course, it also helps on the research side, and we make it easy to share with new doctors. So we have this website, and I'll show you a demo a bit later how it looks like exactly. But we basically organize all patients that are joining. We organize all their medical records in one place, and we build a timeline for them. And that timeline is really useful for yourself because you can, it makes you more flexible if you want to talk to a new doctor, for example, having all your data in one place. but it's also essential for building the research resources. So again, I'll show you a demo. We have all kinds of modules that are disease specific. So we really, like for IBM, as we move along, we will add more and more resources to this that are useful for the IBM community specifically. But the problem is, even if you have all these records in one place and digitized, it's still a pack of papers. And in order to get insights and understanding from it, you need to organize and get data points out of it. So here's a screenshot, an example of a hearing test report. But if it's just a paper and you have like hundreds and hundreds of files of these papers, you cannot do any analysis on it yet. So you have to extract all these data points out of it. And that's one of the things, it's like the heavy lifting that we are doing in the background for IBM. And we are building like the data points out with some of the key opinion leaders, some of the top researchers in the field, to make that data structure relevant for IBM, to get everything out of the documents that we want for IBM. And then the other like really big thing for me also as a patient, like we are just a platform, like, you know, we are sort of a layer in between everybody. We are not like the people in control. That's you. So patients, they own their data and their consent, and they just allow us. So when they consent us, we can do research on their data. But the patients own the consent, so which also means if you don't like it or you don't like what we do anymore, you can opt out of it. So it's really important for us to build that accountability in from the start. So it's you that empowers this process, and we just sort of pave the way. We're also, you know, very transparent about the research we are doing. We're working with some of the key researchers. We try to work with researchers and programs that develop therapies as well. And of course, like an organization someone needs to pay for this. So ultimately, like, it's also really important to align that like with our mission, which is like accelerating therapies. You know, benefits of our approach is if we launch a new disease and we get the community involved, such as here, we can reduce the risk and, more importantly, like save time in the treatment and research, the development of treatments and research. And also, if we do research with the key opinion leaders, for example, we can try to understand the disease better. Like, researchers want to help, but they need the data to actually do the research and back it up. And if we improve the quality of that, the quality of our understanding and knowledge of the disease becomes better too. And because we work directly with patients, we can reuse this data. And this was really hard in the industry. Like, even if they, researchers or groups build these resources, they are usually not being shared with anyone else. So everybody is doing that on their own. And that is really the advantage of putting the patients as a central player, that we can reuse it and we can constantly upgrade it and make it better over time. We are really generally driven to increase, decrease the time it takes to get drugs to the market and increase the chance that something good will come out. So again, it's really like IBM and my disease, like they're just examples, but we are on a bigger mission, and like for me, that inspires me a lot. That we are not only helping maybe our own communities, but hopefully this platform will expand and work on a lot of other rare diseases in the future. That inspires me a lot to do this. We need to change the way we think about it. We need to collaborate more, like, especially in rare. And it's all about like finding new ways how to align incentives and collaborate better. And there is hope. Like there are new biotechnologies, new information technologies that create opportunities for us. So there is hope, and what the key thing we need is to really collaborate better. The other thing to add to that is that rare disease is something pretty new. So like in the past, like if you go back 50 years or 100 years, it wasn't even a concept. Like we didn't have the information or understanding. So the amount of rare diseases is also growing. So we might feel the minority right now, but maybe someday everything will be a rare disease. So this is like a tile that my mother gave me when I told her I was going to go after this problem. And she recognized something, but she gave it to me right before my surgery. But that is how I approach this. So and I hope that with your big involvement, we can all be the cause of a lot of solutions in spite of the problems we have and we are dealing with. To go a bit more into the IBM program, and I'll show you the website too. In a minute, but we basically for every disease, like as I said, we built like a specific resource. So we really invested in the disease itself. Like this is not open to all diseases, so we chose to go after IBM. The community has been really great so far and very supportive, so we are very thankful for that, and that gives us a lot of hope for the IBM program. We are targeting like 100 patients initially for IBM. We have 35 right now. Maybe it's a few more as we speak. Like this, it's a screenshot. Like the more patients sign up, the better the resource is going to become over time. Let me quickly show you the website. So this is the website we have for IBM. It's at ibm.rdmd.com. Sure, like we'll also share the link later, and I'll bring up the other slide again. But here you can sort of see this general overview. We work a lot with patient ambassadors. We work with like foundations and communities, support groups, the key opinion leaders and researchers. Really, it's like the community and the patients that are the central piece of our programs. So we feature them. We are just sort of the layer in between that tries to connect everything. But you can see here like summary, like and how it works. So feel free to check that out. We have a frequently asked questions page. We feature our principles here, and the groups that the growing amount of people that support us and that we work with for IBM specifically. We also feature some of the research projects themselves if you want to go dive into more detail here. At any place like to join, to sign up, it's quite simple actually. The whole process takes about 10 minutes. I can get into that later as well. Like when we just started, patients had to upload all the medical records themselves. Right now, you don't have to do anything. We are doing all the legwork behind the scenes. So really, only thing you have to do to join is to sign up, and it takes about 10 minutes. You basically give us your high-level information, which facilities, hospitals, and doctors you have seen in the past, and then we ask you to sign like a form that we can collect all these records on your behalf. Then we put it in your private account that you have while signing up, and there is a research consent for you to review at the end as well, and that explains like what we do with the information, what kind of research we do. So if you click anywhere on the button, you see it's like a 5-step process of creating your account, setting your preferences, entering the information about the patient. So sometimes, I think a lot of you are patients, probably yourself, but sometimes it's a parent or like a legal authorized representative. Then you provide a list of facilities, and then you can review your consent. Additionally, like just a note, after you signed up, you get an email from us from DocuSign, and we will integrate this later into the process. But right now, it's a separate email that you also have to sign, so we can collect all the medical records on your behalf and put it into your account. So that's just a little side note. So after you have signed up, I just want to give you an idea of what you're going to see. I'm going to show you my account. So this is when you log in, you will have yours. This is my sort of private vault locker, and basically it shows you like a dashboard. What are the things that you can do or that are still sort of to be done. So we try to make it really easy for you to, if it's empty, you're done. There's nothing else you have to do. There is a timeline button here, so you can see all your records, and this depends on the disease, but for my disease, it has this list of types of document, like audiology is important in my case. And you can basically see all that information right here. So everything is digitized and put it to this private account. What we can do, so in the background, we are creating these data sets for research from those papers. And one thing that's really important to note is that these research data sets are de-identified. So the researchers are not using the papers, the original records with your name on it. That is only for you. And the actual research data is just information, and there's a unique patient identifier. And that is going to be used for research. So you cannot be contacted by external researchers. You can only be contacted by us. So when someone needs something, like, we can contact you, but the external researcher can't. That's basically it. Like, and depending on like the disease, we have like different things here that might be relevant for you. You don't have to really worry about it. We also keep it up to date for you. So sometimes when we need something from you, like for an update or something to review something, we will just reach out over email and ask you to amend something small or fill in an extra survey. But it's pretty straightforward. So this is the address where you can go to the website, idm.rdmd.com. There are the Twitter handles below, our own Twitter and Facebook handle, and my own personal Twitter handle if you want to check me out. I guess I'll leave it to you guys. Like, let's dive into the questions. I'm sure you have a million.
Jerry, I was wondering if, since Lynn is on and she's one of our members and she's also an ambassador to the RDMD project, if she might like to give us a little bit of insight into her experience. So Lynn, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Let's hear you.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank Anno and Charlene and Julie for their website is superb. It's one of the best I've ever used. It's so easy. All the graphics, all the colors, it makes it very easy to navigate. I find it to be easy anyway, and I think everyone else will too. I was one of the first to sign up, and am so glad that I did. After just recently going through having melanomas, I've had 4 excisions of melanomas in the last month and a half. And one of my doctors was not in the network with the rest of the hospital. So it made me realize that it's very important for us to be able to have a place where all of our records are stored in one location for the doctors. And I feel that that's where this is going to go, that eventually not only will our records be available to us and to the doctors that want to do research, but they will be able to access it no matter where we are. If we're traveling, you know, that our records will be available. So we're on the cutting edge. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that I just recently read an article on the MIGHTY, that the Global Commission to End the Diagnostic Odyssey for Children with a Rare Disease, which is part of the European Rare Disease Group. They have come up with a 3-prong approach, and RDMD is the one that started it. I think they're copying you, because one of the things, their 3 prongs are exactly the same ones that you're talking about. So we're right in there. We're right in there with everybody else. We're on the go. We're on the move. We're part of an exciting new adventure and technique and technologies for people with our disease to be able to make it easier for us. And Anno and Charlene and everyone at RDMD have made it so very, very simple. Like Anno said, all you have to do is spend 10 minutes to sign up, and they do all the collecting of the records from, in my case, they were from about 6 different places, and now they're all in one place. And I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Thanks for sharing that. If you had tips with anybody that would be concerned, say, with privacy, I know that a lot of people, you know, online privacy is a concern for a lot of people. So I just want to throw this out there to both you, Lynn, and Ono. What would you tell us if we're worried about our security, privacy?
That's one of the main points that Ono brought up, was that, Ono, that's a big concern that they have, and they've taken the necessary steps to protect our privacy. And when the doctors access our records, they don't have our names on them.
That's a
and we have all the control. We can go in and change anything we want at any time. And I've been in this program now for about close to 8 months, I think, and I haven't seen anybody, there's not been any, what do you call it, compromise of my privacy whatsoever.
Okay, great. Ono, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, thanks for your support. No, I think I just want to underline that, like, this whole project depends on patients to enter it. Like, nothing's gonna happen. It's like you're donating your data so we can build these research resources, which is still a lot of work, like, behind the scenes. But without patients involved, we can't do anything. There's nothing going to happen. And this is also, like, I say that in relation to privacy, because everybody has privacy and security concerns these days, and it's good. You know, in general, it's a good thing. I sort of hope that people think about it more. But because it is such a concern, it is also for patients, it is also a really big concern for us. And we really are trying to do everything to help people feel at ease about it. So the first thing is, like, in our team and in our company, we take it very seriously. Like, we have a lot of processes in place. We verify each other on it, on how we deal with the information. We know it's very sensitive. Like, I know it also from my own from my own experience. And the other thing is sort of the security in the system. So we invest a lot in that, and constantly thinking it's a big topic. So it is really on the agenda. So that's one thing, and you can always improve it further. Like, it's just an an endless thing. But I just want to sort of say that it is really high on our agenda, has been from the beginning, because it is such a big concern. And the other thing is that, yeah, the research resources themselves, they won't have these patient identifiers in them. So there are always risks, like also just acknowledging that there are always risks to anything. Like we cannot eliminate all risks in the world. So that is something ultimately up to patients. But I can say for myself, like we hope to eliminate these risks to a certain level that people are comfortable with it. So the other thing I would say, like if you have any concerns for joining, like whatever they are, we would really love to hear them. Like this is the only way we can make it better, and we can address them, because we really want to address any concern that is out there. Like that is really key to making this work. So, if you have concerns and like I'm not sure about it because of X, it would really help us if you let us know, or shout out in the webinar here, or email us or whatever. But yeah, we really love to know, because we.
I think it's important again to point out that the more people, as soon as you get to 100 people, we become available for research. So 100 is kind of our magic number. It's our goal. We really want to spread the word and get the drive to get people to sign up, so we can really get this party started.
I want to thank you for touching on those things. We do have a question here from Martha Arnold. Hi, Martha.
Hey, okay, I'm now unmuted. That's great. Jerry, hi Lynn, how you doing?
Hi,
I've got quite a few questions, so you can just cut me off if I'm going on too long.
Okay.
No, I was quite fascinated by the program, and I thank you very, very much for the webinar, for the presentation, and for the information. You mentioned that you made a conscious decision to go after IBM. Can you tell us a little bit about why?
Yeah, to be frank, this is not a super easy to answer question, but I can give it a shot. I mean, there are like thousands of rare diseases, and which ones do we go after first, right? Because we don't have the resources to go after all of them. We only have resources to get after a few, and really prove with the communities that this model can work, and patients can drive this and be in the game. So one thing we need is, for every program we do, we want it to have an involved research community. So we talk to the key opinion leaders and the doctors that are willing to do research, because we don't want to just build a research data set and wait for something to happen. So we talk to the doctors, we talk to people that develop therapies for it, and we try to see, like, can we sort of get everybody involved, foundations, the communities, and the patients. So we have a few programs right now, like in total, about 10 that you can see on the website, 10 of them. And we really rely on sort of everybody to come along and join the party. So it's a bit of a mix of like seeing like where there is a need for the information, so we can, really do something tangible. And also, like, how does the community pick it up? Like, ultimately, if people are excited and the community picks it up, and there is a flow, then we continue invest in it, and
I used to work in consumer marketing, and we had a phrase called garbage in, garbage out. And I'm just curious, when you're dealing with a disease such as IBM, when you've got years of misdiagnosis, how do you deal with the quality of that data as you think about trying to get to something that we can actually use to make decisions?
Very good question. It is true that we cannot make the data better than what is already there. So the most we can do with the existing medical data that's available is extract all the useful information out of it, which sort of makes it better because you pull it together. So I think one is like increasing the quality, the amount of patients that are part of the research data sets can help. Not everybody will have equally good information and history, but the more we do, the better the overall project is going to get. And the other thing to point out is that capturing that bumpy diagnosis journey is also valuable information. So as long as we can back it up with like real medical information, which is different from sort of a survey-based study where patients report it themselves. So the quality of the information is a lot higher when you do it the way we do it, right, which is getting the information from actual medical records versus a survey study. The downside of that is that it is very hard. It's a lot of work. But that is why we built this platform to kind of take that difficult piece on.
Thank you. Mark, I see you have a question.
Yeah, I'm fairly new at this. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm fairly new at this. Been having this situation with IBM for over 6 years, but just now found out that there was this situation where you guys are doing these things. Basically felt like I was the only guy out there in the world that had this. In regards to your signing up, I have no problem signing up for this. How much of this is shared with insurance companies?
We are not sharing anything with insurance companies.
Okay. That's always been an issue in the past in regards to some of the people's medical records, is it ends up getting shared with the insurance company, and the next thing you know, they're using that data against you.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I'm glad you're asking this. So this is what I was trying to talk about in my slides also with regards to accountability. So we really need the community to buy into it and to keep buying into it in the future, because you hold like the consent and you can decide to opt out if you don't like what we are doing. So with everything we do as a platform, like this is something we need to think about. We need to make the patients that trust us with their information happy. And like sharing it with anyone to be used against you is going to have, of course, huge negative effect for us, and will probably prevent us from doing anything in the future. So this is what I think is really key, that I'm not only saying it, but you are like the key and continue to be the key for us to even do this work. And I think that is something protecting that from happening.
All right, thank you. One last question. Do you guys deal with Mayo Clinic? With the Mayo Clinic?
Yeah, so we have had successful efforts when it comes to requesting records with Mayo Clinic per se. So we haven't had issues with Mayo, if that's a question.
Okay.
And it's with Minnesota and also Arizona.
All right, because I'm out of Minnesota. I'll be out of the Minnesota branch.
Yeah, my name is John Coney. Could I ask a question?
Yes, please. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm very new to IBM. I just was diagnosed this summer after a little bit of a trial and error, figuring out what I had. But just to focus on the data release, once my data is on your site, how do I specifically release to an individual doctor, and do I release specific information, or if I say how does that work? In other words, you're saying I have control, but if someone going to approach me and say I need it, Mayo Clinic or Johns Hopkins is going to click in and say I need specific information from you, and then can I just specifically give certain data, or what does the control of that work look like in reality?
Yeah, that's a good question. When I mentioned releasing records, that's like we ask you to sign this document so we can retrieve all the information on your behalf from all these hospitals, and then we digitize it and put it in your profile. So that's where that ends up. When it's in your profile, you can personally share that profile with a new doctor if you want. So right now you would have to sort of email our support, and then we get that doctor on it. That's how we've been doing it now. So the doctor gets a secure account, and then you can personally say, I want to share this with this particular doctor. But that is sort of just like a bonus feature of our platform. That's not related to the research data, right? So the research data, we abstract all these data points, and then we create this de-identified resource that includes all IBM patients that have signed up. And then researchers can use that separately. Those are not your records. Those are just data points that are abstracted from your records. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess you have a system where someone's going to approach you and say, I want my records, and then you're going to notify me, and then I'm going to release them to a specific person, or do I have to drive the release of the information by saying, hey, Johns Hopkins wants my stuff, I just give it to Johns Hopkins?
I can answer that question for you, John. So I, along with Julia, who's here next to me, we actually do a lot of the processing and the requesting of the medical records. So what happens is you would sign a universal release of information form, which we will send to you electronically. For some hospitals like Johns Hopkins, they only accept ink signature. So what you would have to do is print out the form, sign it, and then scan it back to us. And then you would tell us when you were seen at Hopkins. So if you were seen from last year, from last year, you got treated there, then we will do all of the work of requesting it. So you would just tell us, okay, I was seen by Dr. X or Dr. Y, and we will do all of the requesting. So the only part where you have to actually do something is signing the form.
Hi, this is Diane. Can you hear me?
Hi, Diane.
Hi, I'm having connectivity issues, so it may kick me out, but my big question is, how do you guys make your money?
Yes. Ultimately, that's a really good question too. I try to point it out a bit in the slides, talk about the business model. So ultimately, right now, we have investments that allow us to do these programs and invest in a few diseases to prove that the platform works. Hopefully, like some of the conditions we work in, we can charge for our efforts later to companies that develop treatments. And these companies already right now paying for this information. So when a therapeutic company wants to develop a treatment, at some point they're going to need this, and then they will build these resources themselves. It costs them a long time and a lot of money, to get it done. They go to all the hospitals and all the sites, and they work with all these different hospitals to get it done. In rare disease, that can be very challenging because there are, like some patients, as we mentioned, have already visited 6 different facilities. So the amount of hospitals is crazy, like we have to go through. And the problem is that usually they do it themselves, so this doesn't become a reusable resource. So we will also charge them for the same resource, like later at a later point in time.
Martha, you had another question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Just on a related vein there, Ono, have you had any specific interests from industry related to IBM?
I don't think for IBM, not yet. We try to first build the resources, right? So to have that, to do the sort of work up front before, you can really work with the industry.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing always. So we try to do the work up front. So like if you remember that slide with the arrow where we sort of move building these resources to the beginning of the development pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit of the cart before the horse, but I thought I would ask anyway.
Yep.
Also, I saw Dr. Lloyd and another person from Johns Hopkins. Are there other key opinion leaders who are advising you?
We are actually working, we are trying to sign up another doctor from Pittsburgh. So we do get interests, and also we have a research team who actually are the experts when it comes to these top researchers, but we're always looking for collaborators. So if you have any suggestions, or if you think your doctors might be interested in working with us, please, let us know.
Yeah, maybe another sort of side note on that, like what I've noticed in the beginning, working on my disease, is that it's again like the chicken and egg thing. Like if we have an excited patient community that we can build, it's also going to be more and more attractive for the researchers to see the opportunities here, so we can grow the community on all fronts.
Let's see. Tracy has a question about overseas facility. She's in Australia, signed up in November. Is this worldwide, open to worldwide, or are there any restrictions based on location?
I just saw the chat message coming in, so thanks for asking, Tracy. International is to be completely transparent, isn't easy to solve for us, but of course we need to. In rare disease especially, we want to make this as much of an international effort as possible. What makes this a bit harder to do, and it will take us some time to get this right, is that the research like organizations that sort of oversee ethics and research are different in every country. So we work with an organization in the United States, which is called Western IRB, WIRB in short. They are overseeing that the research we do is ethical, basically. And the research consent that you will review is the last step of the sign-up process, is describing sort of what we are doing in terms of your research. And if you say, okay, I agree with this, you consent, only then can we use your information to do research. This is to protect people, basically, and every country has some kind of system to protect their own people. So these are sort of, I'm just pointing out something that makes this complicated. And of course, the health systems and the way you retrieve information from hospitals is also different on a country per country basis. So it's something we are working on, but it's also hard. So bear with us. We do like, if you are in another country and there are ways to, for example, upload some information yourself. So we're definitely willing to help out. And just know that it is on our agenda. So you can still sign up, but countries outside the US will just take a bit longer for us to tackle.
Tracy, does that help answer your question, or did you have any follow-up?
That's good, thanks. So what I will do is I'll upload my documents that I've got from my doctors, and that way you can get the ball rolling with my information. Because here in Australia they do have very strict privacy laws, which make it difficult for everybody to get information from us. So, but thank you anyway.
Yeah, no, it's great. And again, I am not from the US myself, so I know, how it feels. I travel a lot, around the world, so it really, my vision with this is that it becomes more and more global at some point. And again, it makes sense for rare disease because we are dealing with very limited amount of people, which is why 100 for IBM is a really great data set, right? It sounds like in the modern days a really low number, but it's not. It's not a rare disease. It's really big. So even what we have now, close to 40 patients in IBM, is really great. That shows that there is a lot of traction in IBM already, and gives us confidence that we can get there. So we are sorting out the international things over time. So yeah, thanks for asking the question.
A question there from Chris: not knowing what causes IBM, wouldn't you want as much detail of the medical history to analyze for commonalities?
Yeah, that's a really nice question. It's a good point. This is something we probably have to figure out along the way, which is why it is really important for us to have a relationship with the community and with the patients themselves. So if at some point there's a researcher that wants to study something that happened maybe in the past, or study genetics or whatever, then we can try to sort of add that information and with you guys basically collect other things that might be relevant and might be studied on. So this is why I think the involvement of patients is so important, because if there is something or a question or an idea that comes up, someone wants to try to find out more about the cause, which is of course really important, probably for therapies, but also for dealing with the disease, then we can amend the data later. An example of that would be at some point getting sequencing data, for example. Some diseases, can we find a genetic cause? If we have enough patients that want to participate, we can create potentially a genomics data set, for example. But it could also be something else, it could be a survey. Our system also supports survey-based research. So it's really easy for us to build a research-grade survey, and then we would ask you guys again, hey, can you answer a few more questions for us? And then we just grow the knowledge over time.
All right. Well, I understand what you're looking for is you're looking for enough people to put together to have enough data that you can match symptoms or diagnoses together to get somewhat of a match, so that the researchers can then use that information to then find commonalities amongst those 100 people, which may lead down the road to an actual ability to find cause and cure. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And not only that, but you had your own personal story of finding treatment using this method, correct? So it's not a hypothetical.
So that is, I don't know how lucky I was with that. It's a bit hard to say, but for me, personally, it was a proof that yeah, I can actually do something. And another thing I didn't really talk about, that science event, it was incredibly hard for me to find other data to add to the event. Like, you imagine there are 300 people. It's a big room of people coming. Google sponsors it, and everything is happening. And the only data you have is your own. And the rest is all locked up in all these silos. So that was for me a huge inspiration to build this, because if you want to do something, do some research. If you have people that want to look at information, and you have all the patients, that patients have the key to that information, that is a very powerful thing.
Oh, no, this is John Koenig. I think your concept about doing this is extraordinary, and clearly I've been in the technology area all my life, and whoever owns the data, drives the business, and, it's more than ever evident. So the idea is to drive your company. This is your company, I assume? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. How many total users do you have now?
I think we have about, in total, 300 patients or something.
300, yeah. And I guess from my perspective, I think it's a very noble endeavor, and I think it makes sense to do it. I just concerned about the security and access to data, like everybody else is nowadays. Wherever you're hosting it, and the way things work nowadays, it's just. But I guess it's a risk you might take in order to get some kind of action. So I think it's great. The only other thing I'd like to open it up to is, being new to this, is there any general information about IBM that on the group? Are there any studies? Where do you get information on IBM besides are there any active studies in the country right now? Are there any particular hospitals nationwide that are number 1, number 2, number 3, 4, 5 that deal with this? Or is it that obscure that literally nothing is happening of any significance? Can anybody?
Yeah, I think so.
Specifically regarding IBM.
Yeah. So this is why on the website, you see, if you scroll down, you see two very key researchers work on IBM. So over time we'll just add more. But there are always, like, for every rare disease we encounter, there are always a few people in the country, very, very little, but there are a few people that really delve right into the problem and know everything there is to know about the particular disease. So we try to work with these people from the very start. And it's really important, because if you're developing the data models around the disease, like there's so much stuff we do in the background. We are really like a science company. We want to do science. We want to do science. So we really need the collaborators to be a part of this as well. And we are getting an amazing response from all the rare disease researchers in all the programs we work in. That's been really great.
Okay, so what you're saying right now is the folks you're connected with are the two doctors from Johns Hopkins, is it?
Yes.
Okay, and they specifically focus on IBM.
Dr. Lloyd, I believe, more so. Dr. Lloyd's a big specialist with IBM at Hopkins.
Yeah.
I believe he's on, or has at least been on, the TMA Medical Advisory Board in the past. I'm not sure if he is at the moment. I believe.
Yeah, Jerry, he is currently on the MAB for TMA.
Brian has posted that he was asked about a $15,000 genome sequencing testing, I guess through the RDMD app or website.
Yeah, so this is to elaborate a bit on that. Like, we have a quick survey in the system. So if you sign up, you see a few surveys, and one is about genomic data, getting genomic data. That's it. So that survey is more for us to understand, should we get like genomic data, how much are people willing to pay for it? We are not looking to make any money from that, by the way, but we want to sort of get a sense of how likely it is, if we launch anything like that, that people can support their own data collection. So yeah, that is more as part of a survey, but you don't have to worry about it. So on that note as well, like in case it wasn't clear, so the service is free of charge for patients, because we want to eliminate any obstacles for them to participate. So we realized very early on that it has to be free of charge for patients in order to eliminate that barrier. It's also the data that we collect is free for the research collaborators to do research on. It's not going to be free for, just again on the business model, it's not going to be free for drug development programs. So that is ultimately how we hope to pay pay like later. So we invest in these things up front to kind of move building the resource to the front of the pipeline, but we hope to later get that money back when we work with drug developers.
And so just to summarize, that was basically a survey question, just trying to see what steps moving forward you may take.
Yeah, we are probably going to change that survey at some point. But the problem is if companies are paying to get sequencing data, you start to get incentive issues, and the data doesn't become shareable anymore because the company paid for it, so they want to keep it to themselves. And we don't want to be in that situation. So if we do that, we were just checking, are patients willing to pay for their own data, but then it's completely theirs. So it was more for us to understand.
And you'll see the familiar screen, Accelerate Drug Development IBM. Click the green button to start the process. And you can also share that link with family and friends if they have IBM. Obviously trying to get to that magic 100 number so that things can really get started. And if there's no other questions at this time, I want to thank everybody for taking an hour and 15 minutes out of your day. That's quite a long time to sit here with these diseases, so we appreciate that. And if you have any questions going forward, please feel free to reach out to me, to Lynn. We can get in touch directly with the RDMD team, or you can contact them directly. We don't have to be the middle person in any of the discussions. So we're only here to help guide you in this decision, not to pressure you or to be that middle person, like I said. So feel free to contact who you're comfortable with. I know Lynn here, who is the ambassador for the IBM program, I know she's always been willing to talk with people about things. You can find her on Facebook. And Lynn, with your permission, if we have anybody interested that would like to email with you, would that be okay for us to share your email address with them?
Yes, it would, certainly.
Okay. And we certainly appreciate that, Lynn. You're always so giving, so thank you for that.
Yeah, also, like you guys from our end, you guys have been amazing, and thanks a lot for your support and input. We're learning a lot from you as well, so as we go along, and it's very exciting for us as well. So thank you very much.